Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor and a privilege to have the opportunity to introduce Mr. Jerry Snodgrass as part of this year's OHSABCA Hall of Fame class. Most of us are here because of a coach, teacher, or administrator that took a chance on us, and I feel very lucky to say, for me, that person was Jerry. 20 years ago, he offered a fresh college grad with a hunger to teach, coach, and impact student athletes an open door, an opportunity that changed the trajectory of my life, and for that, I'll be forever grateful. The thing is, and what's even more important, is that Jerry's been that person for hundreds, if not thousands of people throughout his lifetime, mentoring, leading, and above all else, being a tireless advocate for everyone involved with educational-based athletics in the state of Ohio. For those of you that don't know Jerry, his roots from his upbringing in Upper Sandusky helped him develop a deep love for sports, education, and service very early. His life's work in K-12 education and interscholastic sports has spanned nearly 5 decades of teaching, coaching, and athletic administration, which started in Defiance, had a few stops in Ridgedale and Bryan before spending the largest portion of his career at Findlay High School. Throw in being the Northwest District Athletic Board President as well as the OHSA Board of Control President, there are very few things he hadn't done when it has come to interscholastic athletics. But after 30 years in public ed, he wasn't done yet and transitioned to be the Assistant Commissioner of the OHSA before ultimately becoming the Executive Director. When Jerry moved into a leadership role at the OHSA, his influence and impact expanded exponentially. As an Assistant Commissioner, he continually added sports under his purview, ultimately administering 14 sports, a feat I'm not sure anyone other than him could have done, while supporting thousands of ADs and nearly 65,000 coaches. Even when he became the executive director, he knew his most important impact was made directly with the ADs, the schools, the coaches, and student athletes. And you know, every one of those coaches and ADs had his cell phone, knowing he would answer and know their names when they called. That in itself deserves a Hall of Fame honor. But Jerry didn't manage or administrate educational-based athletics, he elevated them. He pioneered initiatives like the Golden Megaphone to engage students, implemented statewide programs, and even developed tools like This Week in Baseball to strengthen communication with coaches. His work created opportunities to celebrate and inspire the student athletes, families, and communities involved, and yet, for all of Jerry's accolades and numerous awards, it's always been his service leadership approach to impacting others that has truly set him apart. He brings out the best in people, empowering them to believe in themselves and accomplish more than they ever thought possible. He has a servant's heart and a relentless drive to impact others positively in every single interaction. It's never been about him, and he will never allow it to be. Today, as we celebrate Jerry's induction into the OHSABCA Hall of Fame, we honor not just a career, but a legacy of leadership, service, unwavering dedication to Ohio educational-based athletics as a whole. Jerry, your impact will be felt for generations to come, and I want you to always know how thankful we are for that. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating the one and only Mr. Jerry Snodgrass.
Thank you, Scott, and I think that's one of the greatest things that every coach in this room shares is the respect and the real what we contribute in life, and that's to see people succeed that we've had an impact on. There's nothing better. You know, I'm humbled beyond belief to be included today. And I think those of you that were on the phone call when you called me, I think you know from the silence on my end of it and what I was doing, know how humbled I was by that. A few people, obviously, I would like to thank, certainly, and congratulate, first of all, this year's nominees. It is an honor to be included. Past nominees as well. And by the way, with past nominees, I did catch a few of them here that I remember as the assistant commissioner over baseball that got ejected and owed a $100 fine. And Emily told me that she found a few of these checks that had never been cashed. So afterwards, I'll meet you in the hall, you can give me the $100. I'll make sure it gets taken care of. John Dickerson and Dick Tremere. Some of you may not know Dick Tremere, but I replaced John Dickerson, and Dick Tremere actually was before him. Dick was an unbelievable lover of baseball and a huge supporter of me and never missed a state baseball tournament after he had retired. Dan Ross for taking a chance on me. Defiance High School for taking a chance on me and hiring me for my first job. Obviously, all my players, and granted, I spent most of my career in football and basketball, but the players in my career. Emily Gates, she is now Emily Mason. I think every coach in this room will understand that one of the greatest things that attributes and traits that we could have in an assistant is loyalty. I think it goes, sometimes overlooked. Loyalty is one of the top traits that we would ask out of our assistants. And that's in administration, that's in coaching, that's anything. Emily Gates, I owe you a tremendous thank you for the loyalty that you had not only to me, but through me to the people in this room. And I am so proud of where you've become. My last recollection, and I don't know for sure now, she is the only female administrating baseball in the nation. And she's damn good at it. Just like so many of my, so many others, I really thank my high school teachers and coaches. My background was not the greatest, it wasn't the worst, but I don't know where today I would be if some of those people, my teachers and coaches, didn't see something in me and really help me steer my career, not so much into coaching and administration, but to be somebody. And I really appreciate them, and I felt like every day on my job, I always felt like I was giving back to my high school coaches and teachers. And lastly, also to this board, and I think I've already thanked them, but it's tremendous what they do, and I hope people realize, and I know Emily would say this as well, with my relationship with the NFHS on a national level and the different rules committees, that the impact and the respect that people around the nation have for Ohio baseball, and that's because of you. And lastly, my wife Barb. My wife Barb, she's my high school sweetheart at Upper Sandusky, and she reminds me that I was a few years older. My daughter Katie, and my deceased son Mark. And I think we also all know in the coaching and or administrative level, we spend so much of our time committed to others. It's what we do. You don't last if you don't do that. I often say that despite I'm still involved in so many things, I look at things from the outside looking in. I look at things today, sometimes I'll say from my coaching where I'll see a coach go nuts or something in basketball, I'll tell my wife, tell me I didn't do that. She just stares at me. But I always tell her times were different then. But my wife Barb, my son and daughter, meals, dinner was at a soccer game. Dinner was at a basketball game. Setting up for something, I can't go home tonight after the basketball game because we've got a wrestling tournament tomorrow and I got to stay here. Oh, and by the way, we've got an away trip the next morning in something, and sure enough, the bus would be 5 minutes late and I would get calls starting at 6 a.m. They spent everything, to support me through. And here's the thing. I'm up here and I didn't win a single varsity baseball game. Now, I could talk about my 6 wins as a junior high baseball coach at Defiance. And I don't know if the Helds are here or not, but if you think Tom Held really started that baseball program, my 6 wins at Defiance Junior High, that did it. But, the biggest thing, through all of that, I've never forgotten where I came from. Yes, I'm a kid from Upper Sandusky. And that really helps us in our listening skills. It helps me remember, Jerry, just remember, take into the big picture. When I was young, I had all the answers, I'm telling you. As a 24-year-old, 23-year-old head basketball coach at Little Ridgedale High School, I had all the answers. I came into a program that had been 1 in 19 the year I took it. But no, I wanted to be the head coach. In 1 year, I turned that program around like you can't believe. We were 2 in 18. We showed it. But you know what it did? It made me listen to, instead of me having all the answers, I had to listen and really see the environment. And the importance of that in administration, and I know Emily has this as well, I had to understand baseball, and sports for that matter, across the state. If Tim Held's in here, and I don't know if he is or not, but I will tell you that baseball south of Interstate 70, Moeller High School, it's a whale of a lot different than it is above Route 70 or Interstate 70. Why do I say that? I'd see records all the time. You know, they're 12-0 or whatever it might be. Teams up where I live in Findlay, I'm close to the lake. Vermilion, your record would be about 1-0 or 0-1 at that same time. The breezes off of Lake Erie in the spring, oh my gosh, they're brutal. Put it this way, I know a lot of teams from Vermilion, that area, they take spring trips down, in Ohio, they'll stay in Ohio, and I don't see any of those southern teams taking spring trips over break to play up at Vermilion, Lorain, places like that. Why is that? It's totally different. But you had to understand that in rulemaking, and I think that was an important thing of helping me keep, a hold of things and understanding and making rules based upon those things. I also talk about the bad experiences and good experiences that lead us to be good leaders. Nick Saban, I was never a big Alabama fan, but I started to listen to Nick Saban a lot on his leadership podcast, things like that. And one of the things he talks about all the time, he'll address this to teams, players, what does it take to break you? And I talked to many schools about that today, about what does it take to break you? You lose a game that you're supposed to win. You're on a 6-game losing streak. You want to chuck it. What does it take to break you? And I think that's something as coaches, I think that's something sooner or later we all face it. I remember giving soccer awards one year to Walsh Jesuit, their girls soccer team. And in 4 straight years, their senior class had never lost a game. Never lost a game. State champions all straight 4 years. I remember putting a medal around their necks a little bit and saying to them, just joking a little bit, hey, this is just like real life. You'll never lose anything. They didn't get it, and I probably shouldn't have said it. But at the same time, it's very rare. Ironically, and no disrespect meant, they had those trophies taken away from them a few years later on something. We have to learn to deal. What does it take to break us? When I grew up, again, in Upper Sandusky, junior high, I missed my whole junior high years of playing sports because of knee surgeries, leg surgeries, and some other things that went on. I looked at that at a young age and said, I'm not going to let that get to me. I can't. So, you try to come back for it. When I was a freshman in high school, truthfully, I got struck by lightning. And it took me a while because, the nicknames and all the joking when you're a freshman in high school, you go back to school, hey, Flash, all those things. But sooner or later, you come to realize I am one lucky son of a gun. I am really lucky. So I've tried to make sure, number one, when Nick Saban said those things about don't let it break you, in retrospect, I didn't let it break me. I did not. And in no way will I, and I'm thankful. I'm going to make the most of every day. Coaches, always see that in your kids. I came from a divorced family. In fact, 2 or 3 times. You have kids on your teams like that. You must listen to that, and I know you do. Don't ever underestimate it and what power you have to make a difference in a kid's life. I just commend you for that, and why I'm so honored to be, even though I never won a game, I actually do the same thing as you. You're all leaders, and I'm so thankful to be part of that group and part of you for that reason, and I hope you never underestimate that. When I mentioned about the people that I've been so blessed to know because of this job, this former job. There are people, and I could mention them all, and I know I would forget people that I should thank and all that, but I look back and I remember in presenting awards and running certain tournaments, 14 of them at one time, and I got to know Brian Perkins and the Toronto staff. And first of all, when I still talk about this to leadership groups, and I talk about the impact that Brian, his staff, and his community had, and his players. And I talked to Brian about this because I still talk about it. It's so memorable to me. When I was presenting awards at the state championship game, it's very customary, put the medal around the neck, everybody claps, they go back and get in their line. Toronto baseball players, they got their medals around their neck, and each time, every one of them walked back to the opposing school and shook their hand. Nobody had ever done that. And I don't know if anybody still does it or not, but my point was, I told Brian, you know what? A lot of people disagree and don't get it. That's the reason you win. Those little things that sometimes people don't know. And I really commend you for that, very much so. 2 years ago, or last year, I spoke at Archbold to their baseball team. Afterwards, every one of their players, they were so attentive, no phones out, nothing, eyes on me, and I'm big on that. They came down afterwards, every single player came down to me, looked me in the eye, shook my hand, and said, thank you. No coach put them up to that. The Brunswick family, I'm honored to know, and Jeff is the coach there. I actually got to know Lou Brunswick, and I think an icon of this association, really. So again, those are big, big things, in my past. I'm very lucky to be here. I'm humbled beyond belief, and I've said that many times. I ask and commend every baseball coach in this room, to continue doing what you're doing. I worked hard. This sounds strange. And with all due respect to superintendents and school boards, I would speak at their meetings and do everything I could to try to convince them that we have coaches out there that go 0-22, 0-26, and they're damn good coaches. And yet we have so much pressure today that we make changes. And that bothers me. That bothers me because they're good people and we lose them in our profession. So please, I encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. It means everything to me to see that. And finally, when I talk about things that could break you, one of the biggest things I encountered in my career, I'm the one that shut down sports for COVID. I could write a book on the experiences with the governor, everybody else. In fact, because of that and the hatred that evolved from that, you'll notice at my table, I invited all my friends across the state, and Scott and my wife had to come. It was challenging. I remember they found my daughter's email address, and she even got stuff. It was the hardest thing in the world to ever have to do. Again, I could write a book on it. Don't let things break you. Don't let sore parents. Don't let a bad season break you. And that's something that I really commend this association that they promote. Whether you know it or not, when I talk about listening to things, that like playing games, in the North, playing games in the South, I always felt the difference between schools in certain areas, especially inner city, that struggle to develop baseball programs, yet they're Division I. Seriously? I struggle with that. I'm going to tell you that. I always have. But I've tried to tried to understand making rules, you need to take that into consideration. I don't know if you know this or not. Jeff Milcarrick on this board spearheaded a drive in the city of Toledo for inner cities, started with Wade High School, to really find gloves for them. Think about that. And it's turned into something great. That's what baseball does. You think about baseball. I say this all the time. It's baseball. Every kid should have the chance to grow up and play baseball. And that's why I am so humbled to be here. Thank you very much for the honor, and God bless all of you.